All right, cool. So we're back. Where are we? Who knows? Just kidding. So we've got a new Xcode project that we made. I called it Hello World. You may have called it something else. We've got it open in front of us. If it's not open, you can do File, Open Recent, and choose your project. And we've got our project running in the simulator here. And it's not much to speak of, but it's something. It's definitely an iOS application. It just happens to be a blank white canvas at the moment. So let's say we wanted to make a couple adjustments to this. We wanted to add a little visual flair to it without getting too crazy, right? We just want sort of to know how do we make changes in the context of Xcode and see those things take effect in the application itself. So we want to do a couple things which will get us to know a little bit about the anatomy of the application that we're working with here. I'm going to hit the stop button, and we're going to click on launchscreen.storyboard. And just real briefly, something about the life cycle of an application when you launch it. Like when you're on the home screen here and you choose to click on any one of these applications to bring it to the foreground or to launch it, if the application is launching, there's a moment, sort of an interstitial period of time between when the operating system is given the signal to launch your application and when it actually has finished launching your application and hands control over to the application. And that moment, could only last a fraction of a second. The OS is going to display something on screen, and that's something that is visible while your application is being launched and control is being handed over to it is called the launch screen. And this is a necessary, just kind of full screen view to kind of cover your bases while whatever the OS is doing to hand control over to your application while that stuff is happening. We want to present something to the user. And we can see that take effect the minute we kind of move away from just this white canvas. And so launchscreen.storyboard. .storyboard is a particular kind of file that Xcode works with. Storyboard file is a file type that lives within sort of a tool in Xcode called Interface Builder. And this is basically a graphical user interface, like a GUI system for building user interfaces. It's pretty meta. But it's basically like a way to visually construct user interfaces that you want to leverage in the context of your application. It looks something like this. I can kind of pan around here, but the important thing to note is that I've got this sort of blank canvas in front of me here, and there are some funky looking things around here, and there's a bunch of peripheral information which we'll get to know a little bit. Important thing to know right now is much like this left-hand project navigator is a list of the files that make up our project. When I click on a storyboard file, this left-hand zone here is a list of sort of the elements that make up the launchscreen.storyboard file. And I'll notice a couple things in here. The one that I want to highlight is that really the single element that is a user interface element in here is this view controller. And the view controller has a view. I'm not going to talk too much about what is a view controller, what is a view. Right now, we will do that in the courses where we actually build the Vimeo application, the to-do list application, etc. But for now, let's just know that a view is basically, let's say it's a space on screen. It's a way for us to modify the pixels on screen, right? So a view is sort of a encapsulated piece of the user interface that we can control and change how it appears. If I click on the view here, I can see that a couple attributes show up on the right-hand side over here. Similarly, if I click on any of these elements, I'm going to see different attributes related to them in the right-hand side. If I click on the view specifically, I can click through all these guys, but this one is the important one. This attributes inspector gives me kind of some visual controls over the behavior and appearance of this view. So one thing I want to do is click on the background color, and I want to change it. Let's say we change it to this sort of cyan blue color. You could also click on the color itself and pick sort of a color wheel color here. I'm going to land on some kind of cyan type blue color here, and that's it. And the moment I change this value, I can see that reflected in the storyboard file here. So now that we made that one change, let's run the application again. And let's see if that has had an impact on what we see. And indeed it has, right? So we see that blue screen for a moment, a second or two, and then we see the white canvas again. And let's do that one more time. That sort of proves to us or illustrates the point that I was mentioning, where when the OS is launching your application, you'll see this kind of launch screen as an interstitial between your home screen and the interface of your app that you're building. Let's go a step further and make another change to another storyboard file that we see in here, which is called main.storyboard. And this is an interface builder file that represents this view. So not the interstitial view, but the interface of your actual application that's presented immediately after launch has finished, immediately after the launch screen disappears. Really, this view replaces the launch screen on screen. And you can do something similar. You can expand this and you can see information about the elements that make up the storyboard file. And again, there's a view here, which also is white. And I want to change that to some other color. You can pick a recently used color. You could also click on the little color swatch and choose something to your liking, basically. And it looks like, I don't know, why don't we choose this greenish yellow color? Choose whatever you want. Again, I can specify the color, and I see that have an effect right here. And if I stop and then run my application again, I'm going to see my launch screen, and then I'm going to see it replaced by, there we go, by my main.storyboard file. So in that way, you can see that you can make changes to interface builder files, i.e. storyboard files. They could have to do with the attributes of whatever view object you've selected here. And the moment you make those changes, you can build and run again, and you can see those reflected in the simulator. It's worth noting, while we're on the topic, that there are a couple different files here. The main ones to note are files that have the file extension storyboard, because those are interface builder files that we can build up and layer visual elements on top of. So we can obviously get substantially far from something that is just a single solid color view. You can also see appdelegate.swift and viewcontroller.swift. And these are files that are where we actually write Swift code. And it's important to note that you can control or have an influence over the elements that are defined in your storyboard files by writing code. So really, you can link your code files to any interface builder file in order to have a greater degree of control over the look and feel of what the interface builder file outlines, and also the behavior of the elements in the interface builder file. So let's take a moment in our next video and make some tweaks to control what color displays when our launch screen disappears and the main interface is presented. Cool. See you then.